and welcome to another episode of Focus On with me, Kiamakhatsa Mosepele. With widespread energy poverty across Africa, the question remains on how this continent can manage its growing population and need for energy while pushing for decarbonization in line with the rest of the globe. We spoke to the Managing Director for Siemens Energy, Middle Eastern Africa, Dietmar Soortdefer, for more. We've gathered here at the Africa Energy Week for the 2024 edition, and as it is well known, the key goal is to eradicate energy poverty by 2030, a target which is not too far away from today. So I just want to know from your point of view, in terms of Africa's progress, where are we in terms of ensuring that goal is met in a readily and steadily manner?
We are progressing, but we are not progressing enough. Still, 600 million people in Africa have not access to electricity, and that is something that we can't tolerate. And the population is growing in Africa, so it means it maybe gets more over time. So we need to fight that. And that we need to do with implementing all kinds of measures to bring energy to everybody, electricity to everybody. And we as a company, we are trying to support that with our means. For example, we have projects which we do here in Nigeria, where we are looking to the so-called Presidential Power Initiative, where we help to build up the grid, because the grid is one thing that is definitely in many African countries is missing. And there we are supporting the government to build a grid infrastructure. We have a project in Togo where we are building a 45 megawatt power station. They had in the past used oil and heavy fuel oil, and now they want to use gas, and with this we contribute 40% to the power demand of Togo. So this is really something where we help also a country to get cleaner, but also to enable new technologies. And we have a project in Côte d'Ivoire where we are having also a new F-class gas turbine which we're implementing there, and it's the first one in sub-Saharan. So also the countries are leveling up in terms of what technologies they are using. And this is what we need to do much more in the African countries, and where we need to contribute also to grow. The investment that is needed over time till 2030 sums up to 250 billion per annum, which needs to be done. So what we are doing is some step stones, but there need to be many more.
And I want to go back to how you've mentioned Africa's growing demand, right? Africa's growing population. Now, in the case of Africa, while there's a push to increase the energy access, we do need to be on par with the global push towards decarbonization. So just marrying those two, if it could be called opposing sides, what is the case for Africa's progress, considering those two factors?
First of all, I believe we need to do everything to decarbonize, meaning that we use cleaner fuels, meaning ramp up definitely renewables. But we need to go also into the industries, we need to go in our power plants and upgrade them. And I just gave you the example about Togo, where we are changing from heavy fuel oil to more energy-friendly, more greenhouse gas emission-friendly gas. And this is something which we need to do on a consistent base. The industry has a lot of means, and these are all small projects which we need to do in order to upgrade their systems and to decarbonize. There is not one big step that we can do. There will be many small steps in the industry and in the power generation industry that we have to take to make the world greener and also to decarbonize our way forward. We are, as a company, also providing, for example, green hydrogen technology. We have own electrolyzers which we are providing. We have built some years ago the first green electrolyzer that has operated in the Middle East and Africa region, and we are proud of that. We need to see now that these projects are also getting implemented in scale in the future, and that we see projects moving forward here in Africa. Africa is uniquely positioned for that, and we hope that we can do many projects together with African countries and African companies.
So you've painted quite a complex picture, and the use of technology in terms of advancing that switch from traditional energy sources towards more renewable clean energy sources. Just walk us through in terms of the automation and digitalization that goes into that to ensuring that switchover process is met in a easier way.
Automation and digitalization plays a huge role. We are using technology, for example, to upgrade turbines to have lower emissions. We are using them to upgrade, for example, with new designs in technology, also making the equipment more efficient, so to produce more or pump more oil and whatever, and also to get emissions which that down. Again, this is a lot of efforts where you have to put in your product pieces of technology. But I want to say that AI is also something which is on a positive side, something that drives the world at the moment, but it's also a threat for Africa, because AI has a huge energy demand. There is an incremental growth on top of all the growth that we have seen in the last year of 2% also for AI data centers. And this means that these investments are also going into this kind of data centers in the future. So we need to look that we maybe find ways also how can we build AI data centers here in Africa and use this technology also to help the people to get access to electricity while we build this incremental growth on top of what we are doing already.
It's interesting that you've touched on investments, right, in the AI front, but another part of the energy switch is the need for financing, specifically sustainable financing. Just walk us through some of the challenges there for Africa's case, as well as including perhaps regulatory participants from government, whether it be from government, private sector, or the public sector. What does that picture look like?
First of all, I believe that some countries, especially when you look, for example, at Europe, they can't tell Africa that you can't use gas or oil and gas resources, because Africa has the right to use their natural resources. They need to grow that. And also to make Africa more sustainable, which is only populating with 2 or 3% of the world emissions, or contributing with 2 to 3% of the emissions to the world emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, that they have the right to use these technologies. And that means also that we need to enable financing for such projects. And if Europe or others are not doing it, then we need to look maybe to other ways. Maybe the Middle East and other collaborations could be partners to enable also financing here in Africa, and to look forward how we can bring projects up and do also implement, for example, gas projects, implement grid projects, and implement renewable projects with these new partners. I think that there is a way forward for that, and we need also to continuously to work also with the established institutions in Europe and elsewhere in the world, also to find ways to enable financing for such projects.
I'm also interested in terms of your outlook into the future of Africa's energy sector. You have mentioned that Africa is a small emitter of greenhouse gases, but the deficit in terms of the people that do not have electricity across the continent stands quite high. What are some of the challenges you anticipate going into the future in Africa's energy sector?
One element we have discussed, which is the financing. The other one is when we go into a country and we want to electrify countries, and we have done so as a company globally in many places. You need to find a stable environment in the country. You need to find also smart and fast decision making. You need to have bold decision makers that say, this is how we want to bring our country forward, this is how we want to bring our energy system forward, and then take the necessary steps. Sometimes we are stumbling over regulations and over laws which are preventing that over years nothing is happening. I think this needs to get better, and it was said also in the morning in the conference. The country needs to have a purpose, and the electricity system needs to serve this purpose. If that's the case, then all the other stumbled stones that are potentially in the way and barriers will go away. But this is something that I see as the biggest challenge at the moment, that we need to invest into projects which have a purpose and where the country is saying this is what we want to do, and then find their way to get it done.
And I also want to zero in. I understand you have an overhead perspective between the Middle East and Africa in terms of ensuring this transition towards cleaner energy sources. But what is your opinion on localizing this transition from the everyday man or the local governance that can ensure that these metrics are met sooner?
So we are working as a company, we are working very close together. We have 46 locations where we have offices across the region in the Middle East and Africa. We are having more than 3,700 people on the ground working day in and out with the customers. We have 6 service centers around in the region which are serving our clients. So we are as a company trying to do our thing. Now what we do from a company perspective with our partners in the different areas is to bring them also together, to enable collaboration where we look how can we finance projects, how can we do business together, because it's important that Africa is doing business, for example, with Middle Eastern companies and countries. G2G collaborations can be enabled in order to make things happen. And this is what we try to do, because we have quite some substantial footprint on that already done in the Middle East, and we want to enable that now also here in Africa in the collaboration.
And just before I let you go, this conference brings together stakeholders from across the globe to discuss the challenges but as well as opportunities in Africa's energy sector. Why do you think the meeting of such minds is so important to enable that growth and prospect for success for Africa?
I mean, such conferences are key. They bring together people. People get to know each other. People also do business with people they trust each other. I'm a firm believer in when you know somebody and when you have talked to somebody, that's different than when you just have paperwork and you make investment decisions or whatever. So important is that you understand each other, that you understand also what are the challenges on each side, and then to move forward. And I was last week in Saudi Arabia at the Future Investment Initiative conference, and there was also a lot of African countries, a lot of African ministers, which also discussed how can they collaborate. Same we do here now, bringing these people again and again together and discussing how do we progress, how do we move forward. That is, I think, so essential, and this conference is very valuable, and I'm happy that I'm here, and it's a very good thing to move forward.
Making energy poverty history by 2030 is the goal, but a lot remains to be seen on how that metric will fare 6 years from today. But that's how we wrap up this episode of Focus On with me, From me and the CNBC Africa team, it's goodbye for now.